on Revolution Radio. We had such a great time with her back in October. We invited her to come on our show. So Debra was born and raised in upstate New York and is a mother of one, grandmother of four, and she currently resides in upstate New York, where she has an urban farm, which she calls fairy farms. We'll have to ask her, are there fairies on the fairy farm?
You never know with me.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you tell us rather than me reading. That's boring. So let's start with that. How did you come by the name Fairy Farm?
Actually, I was working on a marijuana brand, and so I was trying to come up. I love it. So I was trying to come up with a good name for the grow, for the farm, and that was it. It came up as Fairy Farms. So now I use it for everything, not just the marijuana strains, but for all of my gardening.
So what do you mean by cultivating seeds, medicinal plants, medicinal, that's how it's pronounced, to promote guerrilla gardening?
Yes.
What is guerrilla gardening?
Okay.
What do you mean by that?
Guerrilla gardening is a concept of taking any open space, be it cement, be it dirt, it does not matter, and growing things on it, right? And using the existing environment to organize what you're growing, because you can put things in fiber pots. So you can live in the inner city and have a balcony. As long as it gets some sunshine, you can put some fiber pots out there and grow food. And I live in an area of upstate New York that the ground has been poisoned because of years and years of chemical manufacturing in the area. So I don't like to grow anything in the ground here. So everything I grow is in containers. And so,
I've seen that. I lived and there was one person that had a balcony, and they must have been like 15, 20 stories up. But there was just stuff growing all over the place, and it was hanging down. And I said, why don't we all do that?
Yeah, there was this restaurant I used to go to one of my favorite Starbucks, and they had all this lush gardening all around the restaurant. And so I'm always looking at plants and looking for seeds. And I started looking at the plants and realizing it was all food. It was like tomatoes and peppers and strawberries and things like that. It wasn't flowers. It wasn't bushes. And I thought, and that's what got me into the guerrilla gardening concept. And, people in the inner city where they're, fresh food poor, they don't have access to fresh food. And so teaching them there's often empty land in the urban areas, right? So using any empty land or any empty space and growing food, right? If you've got some space, there's no reason why you should starve. What's that?
They have all those rooftops. They have all these flat rooftops in the cities. Yeah. And they're not being utilized.
Yeah, yeah. Any space where you can put a container, you can grow something.
Awesome. Okay, so then you also have a BA in Business Management from Western Governors University.
Yes, ma'am.
An AA Design from Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising.
Yes.
FIDA. Paralegal certificate from the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, which is Dr. Lessin's alma mater. You guys can swap stories for a few minutes about going to UCLA.
I love UCLA. I loved going there. It was great. I love the campus.
And what do you think of UCLA, Sasha?
UCLA was like heaven for me. I absolutely loved it. You can go down a hall, and it doesn't matter, and you hear any lecture, and you just come and sit down. Office hours, nobody goes except me. You can go to talk to the professor. It's like they limited you officially to 15 units, but I got permission to take way more than that because it's really slow if you're a full-time student. But it's wonderful. I never wanted to leave.
I know it was a great school. I loved it.
Now, Dr. Lessin went to UCLA in the the 50s, right? Because he's going to turn 80 this year,
Wow.
and so I was still anywhere near the same of what it was like back then. When did you go to UCLA?
2007.
Yes, so it's a whole different generation. Well, it's still like he describes it.
Yep. It hasn't changed at all.
Hasn't changed. Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
So this is a very diverse background.
Yeah.
Are you Gemini or something? No.
No.
What?
I'm Virgo and I sit on the Libra cusp. But yeah, you make plans and then God laughs and life happens, and that's how my resume reads. I was going to be a lawyer and go to law school.
What happened that you didn't go down that road?
I got pregnant.
You went down that road.
I got pregnant. Yeah, I got pregnant. So that kind of derailed plans.
I was working in the Attorney General's office. I kind of was unemployed, and so there was a job there, so I had to take it, right? Because you have to take it if you find one. And I ended up being a paralegal because 3 of the ladies were pregnant, and I didn't know what I was doing. It was like they just threw me in the deep end of the well. So, yeah. So I understand. I didn't really particularly like it too much because I wasn't trained for it. But did you like it when you were paralegal? I think if I hadn't been thrown in the water, I would have enjoyed it.
There's certain aspects. It depends on the area of law you're working in, right? There's certain areas of law that I don't find very interesting and very boring, and then there's other areas of law which I find extraordinarily interesting. So, it just depends on the type of case and the type of work.
Yeah, I was in tort lit, so they had interesting things like somebody got hurt because the wave hit them. They would sue because the wave. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. And then they used to have a circus back then, and the elephant got loose and ran down the streets of Honolulu. But the poor elephant, they had to kill him. Oh. Anyway, it was I found all the cases very interesting, because what do people sue the state about, right? And, it was very, very interesting.
I used to work I used to do a lot of volunteer work in criminal law. I used to work in Compton on criminal cases as a paralegal volunteer. And I used to help people teach people how to navigate the system, right? Because how the law works and how you think it works are often 2 different things. And so I used to try and teach people how to have realistic expectations about the process and how to understand the system so that you don't become a victim to it.
Boy, I could have used you. I mean, I wasn't in criminal, but there's times I've gone to court and I felt like I was on trial. Oh, my God. For other things, yeah.
I used to work. Right after I had my baby, I used to work for a man named Emmett Colvin, and he was one of the top criminal defense attorneys in Texas. So I worked for him for 2 years, but he was in his 80s by then, and he was retired. But he used to run a school that used to train criminal defense attorneys. So I used to help run all the classes in the school while I worked for him. And then he used to do side legal work, so I used to help him on the cases too. And that's how I got into criminal law.
Wow. So, let me see. Do you have any comments or questions at anywhere you want to go with this discussion? We're kind of in a free flow. I'm just only about a paragraph through your bio, and then I'm continuing. It's like, oh my goodness. So we'll keep going. But go ahead. What did you want to say?
I at one point, my father was a lawyer, and I wanted, when I realized what he was doing, he was a divorce lawyer, but he wasn't. At least a third of the people that came to him wound up being reconciled. And then some of those, of course, came back and he got another fee. But a lot of them, they made their marriage work, and my father did it. And so I became a psychotherapist, and basically, with a little bit more refinement, learned how to do the same work of helping people make their relationships work. So
your father actually helped get them back together instead of getting them to...
Absolutely. He would always have an attempt at having communication and getting them to be vulnerable with each other so that they can talk about what their needs are instead of just endlessly fight about stuff.
Man, I've never heard of a lawyer doing that. I'm so impressed.
I never did either, but I never got to meet his father because he died quite young. But I can see the son. He was an amazing man to raise his Sasha, Dr. Lessin.
I know.
He would read. What was it? The history of the. Instead of
The Outline of History by H.G. Wells.
Say it again. The what?
The Outline of History by Wells.
That was his bedtime stories instead of whatever it was back then. And he read to his son and I guess the daughter too. My parents didn't read to me. I think that really helps people anchor into another level, getting the education preschool, getting information.
Well, in the evening we took turns reading poetry to the family. We had a whole family deal.
Can you imagine that? That was the 40s and the 50s. They read poetry in the evening.
Well, they used to listen to the radio instead of watch TV, remember?
Right. Sasha lived it. We only can imagine it. Imagine the world with just radio.
Well, I hated the television. Milton Berle stole my dad.
Well, let me go down the line here. So a fashion designer, project developer, pattern maker, and consultant in the apparel industry for the last 30 years in Los Angeles.
Yes, ma'am.
You have an accessory line with your daughter. And it was called Frolic in the Fiber. You have very interesting names.
Yeah, Frolic. That's her accessory line. It's called Frolic in the Fiber. So she finally got me to branch out, which I have done, and I launched my line, which is kind of named after our show. It's called Stitch Witches, and I just got it's called Stitch Witches. I just got the Etsy shop up, and I'm in the process of getting my main Shopify website up. So hopefully I'll have that up in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, that's interesting. I have a friend that did the Etsy, and Shopify.
Yes.
And she said she's making a lot more money than working for the man, right?
You know what? I'm surprised. I've only had my shop open a couple weeks, and I'm surprised at the number of orders I got. But I also engaged in a lot of their services that they offer, like they'll advertise for you. And so they've been doing it, and you can definitely see the results. So, and they have all kinds of statistics and data analytics, and, you're just pushing buttons and you get real-time information, and it's fabulous.
Wow. Well, I wonder what I would sell. Well, you're in an interesting industry. So we don't have a sample what your stuff looks like.
So
what does it look like?
What Stitch Witches is Stitch Witches is a concept based on sustainability, right? And it's sustainability either through the raw materials you're using. I do a lot of repurposing. So I do a lot of old stuff that people are going to toss or donate, and I repurpose it and turn it into new stuff. So I will take a lot. I have a headband collection that I did, and a lot of the prints are fabrics. I've been in the fashion industry 30 years. So, I worked at jobs where they're always throwing away fabrics and trims, and to someone who sews, that's sacrilegious. So anytime they were tossing things out, I would take them. So I've got 30 years of fabrics and trims. I've got a lot of vintage stuff, and the vintage stuff is really in. And so I use a lot of vintage prints, and a lot of the stuff that I use, a lot of the headbands that I do, I use vintage prints. A lot of my products on Etsy use all the raw materials, you know, that I've collected over the years. I probably have enough fabrics and trims to start a store. I have that much.
That's wonderful.
Well,
wow.
Please send me the links to both. So I will put them up on the page.
Okay.
Because I'm really fast. My friend that did it said she would go to garage sales and there was all these vintage clothes.
Yes.
And she would take them and just do the same thing. And she was making, I think she was making minimum wage at first. And she started this and she was making like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month. That was a couple of years ago.
If you stick with it and you find your niche, you will make money. And I can already see where this is going. Like, I have more things I want to put on the shop, but I'm taking my time. I've been working on this idea probably for a decade. And so I'm also getting ready to launch a new clothing line called Xhale that's made out of hemp. So the entire clothing line is made out of hemp.
That smokes.
Yeah, and I'm doing like natural vegetable dyes. So I'm playing with a lot of plants this year in the garden that I'm growing specifically for dye purposes. So I'm intertwining the gardening with the fashion.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
You'd make a real pioneer.
I know. My daughter.
World, I'd want to take you.
My daughter wants me to start a homestead. My son and daughter-in-law, they're a military family, and they're coming back from Germany, and they're retiring from the military in January, and they want to start a homestead in Texas.
You would probably do very well. You seem like you have the right personality. I couldn't sew anything. I'd probably stitch my fingers. I didn't do very well.
Have you ever watched Project Runway?
No, I don't have television.
Okay,
but I should.
Yeah, it's a show. It's a show on. It's a fashion show where they have a group of people, and they give you random raw materials and random design ideas, and you have to, they give you like an hour to go buy all your supplies and money, and then you have like 2 days to create it. And wow. So I do what's called my own little private project runways. I'll get an idea, and I'll collect a lot of raw materials, and I'll just lock myself away for a few days and do nothing but sew and create. And so at the end of it, I'll have a bunch of products. So usually every capsule collection I have is from a session like that, where I'm just in the studio for days on end. And when I'm in that zone, I will stay up all night long and sew. And I love to stay up late at night when the rest of the world is asleep and create things.
That's wonderful. My best friend, her mother was like that. She would stay up all night sewing. It's like an addiction.
Oh, you have no idea.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So I just finished a bandana collection, a collection of clothes made from repurposed bandanas. And I'm getting ready to put that up on the shop, and that's probably what I'm going to launch the Shopify site with.
Oh, I can't wait to see.
Yeah,
send me the links because
I will definitely do that.
Pictures, yeah, I'll put some on here.
Okay, I'll definitely do that.
That just shows us what you can do. So we're all in lockdown. If we all get creative and artistic, I know a mad painter is an artist, and he does a lot of stuff. He'll probably show some art in the chat there before the end of the show. He usually makes a piece each show.
Well, that's what I use. Wow. I use the lockdown as the opportunity to get the shop up. It forced me to stay home and spend time on this, so that's how I've done it.
Well, I promised myself I'd write a book, but I haven't even begun. Sasha's writing a book during lockdown, but I don't know what's going on with me. I'm just like, ooh. But I might get it together. I have it all outlined. I just have to pull it together. It's kind of like you have your pattern, you cut the material, now you have to
Yeah, exactly.
So, let's see. Now, you were in L.A. Did you work with Hollywood at all for their costumes they need?
No, that was the one thing I wanted to do. That was my goal when I got out of design school, was to work in the costuming industry in Hollywood. And I was never able to break into it. Now I've done a lot of private freelance costuming. Like I'll do a lot of that. I create costumes all the time. That's one of the reasons why my daughter had been pushing me to put my own shop up, because I do these very elaborate costumes. So I've been thinking about getting into cosplay and doing costumes for cosplay, because I love doing costuming.
Oh my God. Yeah, that'd be wonderful. Yeah, because where do you get those?
What, the cosplay?
So, yeah, cosplay. So it has to be somebody that really is able to do something like that, but not everybody has that ability, but they might have the perfect look to wear the costume, right? So
yeah, they buy most of the cosplay costumes online.
Uh-huh. Okay, so you got another branch of what you can do.
Well, you know what? I'm going to have to, because my chances, I've been unemployed for a year, and my chances of getting a job after this are probably less than 1%. And I'm a decade from retiring, so I've got to do something to try and support myself, and figure this out, because I don't think I'm going to be back in the working world, not for a few years.
I think it's better to work for yourself. We've been working for ourselves I met Sasha in 1997. So ever since I got here, we were working for ourselves. We do counseling, and we've done workshops and certification programs, education. So I stopped working for anybody else in 1997, and that was it. And I would never go. I couldn't imagine going back.
I would love to never go back to work for anybody else ever again.
You don't have to. You're making it. That's what my girlfriend who called me and said, I don't have to work for anybody else now. I work for me. And she would go to yard sales. She branched out into knickknacks, and she learned what was valuable. And you go to a yard sale, you can get it for 50 cents and work $20. So she educated herself and all that. She's a smart person, but she did the vintage clothes. Now, when you're talking vintage, what time frame era is the most popular? Do people like 40s, 50s, 60s? 70s,
it
80s?
depends, right? Because right now the 80s are in, right? A couple years a couple years ago, it was the 70s, right? The 60s seem to come back every 5 to 7 years. So right now, like the whole dynasty look, that's becoming big.
Do they like the big shoulders?
Yeah, the big shoulders, poofy hair, big jackets, the big baggy look. Yep.
I still have some of those outfits. I brought them with me.
So do I.
And it's like, and they were they were expensive. I used to work in an office, and I was a clothes horse, and I like to look great, and I bought all these fashion. Yeah, I'm a clothes horse. Wish I could give them to you so you could fix them up and sell them. I mean, if you take it to the whatever recycle store, if they ever come back, I don't know if that's an industry that's gone now. We used to have Goodwill and stuff like that, but that's all closed down. But if you give it to someone, they don't know what it is, right? So they can't appreciate it. But
you'd be surprised, because secondhand clothing is huge, especially with the younger generation, and they're very savvy. And a lot of the vintage clothes, you have to recondition them, right? Some of them are in pristine condition. Right. Like I volunteer at a place called So Green Rochester, and we take donations of any type of textiles or raw materials or fiber art, any type of craft or art like that. And often people will donate vintage clothes, and we just give those away, and I'll take them and I'll recondition them, and then I'll resell them. Like, I've got 2 dresses hanging up. I think the one dress is from the 40s and the other dress is like from the 60s. And so I've got to do some things to clean them up. One's like 100% silk, and the other one is this gorgeous cotton that's just beautiful. And whoever sewed this dress, you could tell they put a lot of handwork into it, and it's just gorgeous. Anyone that knows vintage clothing will appreciate these garments when I get done with them.
Can't wait to see. Send me pictures. Do you take pictures of each item?
Oh, yeah. I have tons of pictures. Yeah, I have tons of pictures. I'll put them up. I just don't have stuff up on the internet right now. The only place I have the pictures are up on the Etsy shop. And I've got a few things up on Instagram, but not much, and Facebook. Like, I launched the store with face masks because I have tons of fabric. I didn't have to go out and go buy anything because you can't get anything right now. So I made tons of face masks and launched the store with the face masks, and now I've added other accessories. And I was waiting for my garment labels to add my clothes to the store, and I got that yesterday. So I'm putting garment labels in all the clothes, and I'm going to add that to the Etsy store probably this week.
I was noticing Losi has a designer mask for every outfit she wears.
Oh, don't you just love her? I don't know who her stylist is, but they do a great job with her masks.
Yeah, it's like what's that around her neck? Oh, that's her mask.
Yeah.
And she has them so she can take them off, and they're like a neck scarf, and then she can pull them up.
Yep, she does.
See, that's the whole thing. Because these viruses are going to be around for a while. That'll be a whole subline you could have. Yeah, I guess you can, since you're in the industry, you might be able to even predict what's coming down the line, the fashions of the future.
Oh, I do that all the time. I've been doing that since I was a little kid. That's part of my whole intuition, I guess you call it. Mm-hmm. My intuitive senses. I'm very good at predicting the trends that are going to hit and be popular like 2 years down the line. And so that's why I've always done well in design.
Pandemic line where you could dress from head to toe, and some guy the other day said he did everything right, and he thinks that the pandemic or the virus came through his eyes, so you could have the whole headgear with the eye, and the whole fit. I think it could be a style, you know.
Well, I think masks are here to stay. I'm like you. I think our way of life and the way we interact is going to permanently change, right? The way we traveled and the way we live changed after 9/11, and it's going to change again after this. But what it's going to look like, nobody really knows yet.
Not quite. And then I'm still going down your bio. We haven't even finished your bio. So that was the closing part. So an empath since childhood in the psychic with the gift of prophecy since her early 20s. After a traumatic period in her life, she has spent the better part of 30 years not using her abilities due to the backlash received from the people around her when she shared the knowledge gleaned from these abilities. And she began remote viewing during the pregnancy of a daughter, with her abilities only growing after that. She's also clairsentient, clairaudient, claircognizant, and telepathic. Okay, that's a loaded paragraph. So let's unpack that. Are you bored, Eddie? Come over here. Ask a question. Get back over here. What would you like to say?
Wait a minute, you just laid a whole trip out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we'll go to that. No, he was on his chair and he was like backing across the room, so they can hear. Okay, so
okay, prophecy. Let's do it. Is Trump going to declare an emergency and become president, whether he wins or loses? Is he going to lose? What's going to happen in the election?
Okay, so it doesn't work like that. My gift of prophecy works when a warning is needed. The latest example of my gift of prophecy, and I've been talking about this on my show ever since we started the show in September, that there were food shortages coming, that I had been having premonitions about food shortages. And I've had these premonitions for 4 years. That's what made me ramp up the urban garden and start getting very serious about seed collection and breeding seeds and growing food and things like that. And I only told the people that were closest to me, but my showmates, I've been telling them for a year about the food shortages coming. And everybody was like, yeah. Nobody believed me, and look where we are.
Well, it's gone. A lot of prices have gone up.
That's the same story as Joseph. There's going to be food shortage. Oh, come on, crazy Joseph. But then there's one guy that listened to him and said, yeah, maybe we should do something about it.
All right, so most people don't listen, and they still haven't got to that point. Not everybody. There's a lot of people that are going hungry now, but still there's a majority that they still have food. We still have Walmarts. We still have Costco. They're still shopping. Now, I haven't been to the stores. Are your shelves empty in your stores?
Yeah, we're starting to run into shortages in a lot of different things because the food supply chains have been disrupted.
Mm-hmm.
We've got companies where they're short of employees because of what's going on, or they're short of raw materials, or they're slaughtering all the animals because there's no place to sell the meat, right? And that's creating beef shortages. Like the fast food restaurants are running, 25% of the fast food restaurants in this country don't have hamburger meat for hamburgers.
Alrighty, fun times.
Well, that perhaps would be a good thing. If we ate less beef, there'd be more forests.
Well,
there'd be more rain. There'd be less CO2 in the air.
Let's hope what comes out of this are the new ways of doing things. Janet, you and I have been talking about this for a long time, right? That our existing systems, they're broken. They don't work. And I think the pandemic made it very obvious to everybody the systems don't work, and we're dependent on the systems, and when we needed them most, they've let us down. So what are we going to do from here? We've got to learn lessons from this and find new ways of doing things. How are we going to do that? One of the things everybody, I think, realized is all the things you could do without, right? I can't believe how much money I have not spent by sitting at home.
Yeah. If you want to save money, stay home.
Do you know what I mean?
We could do without imprisoning our people that are seeking asylum. We could do without prisons that are run for profit among starving people. There's a lot of things that we could do without, including a government that basically steals from the people in general and gives more to the rich people. That's things I think we could do without.
Well, yeah, I was thinking, well, let me just say this, and I'll pass it back to you. The prison thing, they could put most people on at home with the thing on their leg, right?
Yeah, with modern technology, why do you need to keep them locked up like that, right? Because honestly, sitting at home 24/7, not being able to leave, it ain't a party. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And people have... it's stressed a lot of people out. It's created mental health issues. And it's the same kind of mental health issues you have when you're locked up, when you're confined, right? Like in prison or any type of detention.
So what are the rules in upstate New York? Right now we have an alert. There's a girl that came from Colorado. She violated her quarantine, and it comes on your phone. They said, people are looking for so-and-so who's 31 from Colorado. She violated per quarantine because they're letting people in. They have to be quarantined for 14 days. So what kind of adventures are happening where you live regarding the laws? They did a couple people recently get rid of them and lock them up.
Well, the governor put us on lockdown back in March. And he's allowing the center part of the state. Our part of the state isn't opening up yet because our numbers aren't where they need to be. The far west part of the state and the far east part of the state are still closed, and everything in the middle is opening up. But honestly, people are in the streets today. They haven't been. People here respected the lockdown rules, and I think it kept, as bad as it got, it could have been a lot worse. But I still think there's a lot of people here that don't believe this, and I see it time and again every day in talking to people. And talking to medical professionals, people don't believe it unless it's touched them on a personal level, that this virus exists, right?
Yeah. And I think that...
Let her finish and then you talk. Go ahead, finish your sentence and then it's your turn. Go ahead.
No, so we have respected the lockdown and we've started opening back up slowly but surely. Stores aren't open yet where I'm at. The restaurants are open, but it's takeout only. So it's going to be a gradual process. Governor Cuomo, God bless his heart. Let me just say this. I was not a fan of that man before this started, but I think he's a god now. And I worship the ground he walks on. And I will vote for him anytime, anywhere. And I will stand in any line to vote for this man. I don't care. So I hope he runs for president one day because he's so... Huh?
You're Cuomo-sexual.
Yeah,
you know. See the thing? I'm a Cuomo-sexual.
Yeah.
No, I think he's great. He showed us, he was presidential. He really showed us what it was like to be presidential.
All I could see when I looked at him was the corruption that was around him with the people that worked for him that went to prison, right, for that Buffalo Billions. And so I always had a bad taste in my mouth when it came to him because I found it very hard to believe that he didn't know anything about that. But watching what he did through this crisis and how he took charge, and he was there in the thick of it every day, how well he communicated to people. I mean, that man has done some amazing things, let me tell you that. And like I said, yep, I'm that girl. Oh, I got you.
I don't know what the buffalo thing is. I don't want to go into it, but do you know what the buffalo thing is?
I don't know what's happening in Buffalo.
There was a program put together called Buffalo Billions, which was supposed to invest in businesses in Buffalo to try and revive the area, and the money got stolen through fraud. Yeah. And three people that worked for him or with him went to prison.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Sasha, you had a question.
The function of government is theft of property, life, and freedom, and so it's not surprising that you get theft. That's what government does. But I have a prophecy. I was asking you for one. What I realized that was projection. I had such a strong prophecy. What I realized when I saw the president and the vice president in all these different scenes without their masks on and saying, I take malaria medicine, I realized they're both going to die, and that will leave the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, as President of the United States.
Wouldn't that be fabulous? Oh, my God.
So I would have rather they just left by being defeated, but I'm afraid they decided to die, and they're dying for the good of the country. And so rest in peace, boys.
I love it. That's wonderful.
Well, if you think about it, it's a red states that are rushing out and they're exposing themselves to this potential. Still, their numbers are high. They have all these videos on how fast it'll travel. They have this one I forget who made it, Japanese. They just showed 4 or 5 people sitting at a meal, and they had this secret stuff on them that only showed when the black lights came on.
Right.
And everything included at their table. And it's like, so this is what happens if you see any of these. It's in the air. Like these people were singing, and almost everybody got it because they're breathing in deep and they're singing out loud. And they're just pumped it in the air. So this 6-foot thing is bullshit. It can travel 12 feet. It can pollute the entire environment. And you think you're going to go out without think of the cold. You can get your cold easy. You can get this even easier. And then you're playing Russian roulette with yourself and everybody you know.
Yep.
You know? I just went out and polluted myself with a deadly virus. I mean, we wouldn't do that back in the 70s. We were watching these movies about pandemics. We'd go, you stupid person, you just exposed yourself.
It's like AIDS.
Yeah, it's like AIDS. It's like, you might as well go have sex with everybody that has AIDS, right? Back in the 70s. And so, when you watch these movies back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, when they made these pandemic films, in the audience, you go, what a stupid person. And now we're living it. And it's like, what stupid people? But it's going to be mostly the red people that get, the red voters are going to get wiped. So what's this election going to look like? They're going to start the conventions again. And Trump's going to go around and...
It's so funny you said that, because that's what I said to my mom. I said, look, I said, he's going to have his rallies. They're going to all be sitting there spreading that virus with each other, and they're going to kill each other. And I said, they'll do the job for us. All we got to do is just sit there and watch.
Yeah, we don't have to even campaign. You just sit there and let them do it, and then we'll walk right into all the different offices, all over the Senate, the Congress, the White House. Go for it, guys.
Honestly, my personal opinion is I think Trump's going to have to be forced out of office, he'll voluntarily leave.
Now, that was a scenario. I was watching all these time travel shows. Like, there's Apex TV. It says, and people go, what's it like in the future? So they have all these predictions. And like a bunch of them said, well, Trump wins, but we have to take him out. And so you're saying the same thing.
No, I'm not saying he wins. I'm saying Trump loses, but he won't leave office voluntarily.
Right.
I think he's going to have to be forced out.
So do we have any kind of remedy in our Constitution?
No, there's
for someone to
no. The Constitution. The founders just thought that people would honor the succession, and so the president can even say it's a national security and call it a national emergency, that we don't hold this election if he thinks he's going to lose. He can. There's many Republican tricks. He has a very good chance of winning the Electoral College, even.
Dr. Lessin, if he does that, I think you'll have riots in the street.
And he'll use the riots as an excuse, and so then it comes down. The only thing that could possibly make a difference is the huge population that they just can. There will be no functioning of anything if he takes office illegally.
Yeah, I'm honest. You have an angry electorate that they're just over the drama, right? Of how you feel about him or the administration personally, you're over the drama getting done, right? All you've had is just one dramatic bullshit corrupt thing after another. Nothing's getting done. At the time we need, completely failed, right? And it's just, you just want these people gone. It's not, you just want something else, some peace of mind, and not have to pick up the news and find something else on the news besides Trump.
Yeah.
A disgusting creature.
Sent me a map, and they said the intention is to break the United States down into 5 or 6 countries. So think about this. The USSR used to be, anyway, the United States,
right.
Soviets, week was a bunch of countries like the United States of America. Well, we took them out. How did we take them out, honey? Some kind of at them, or So we were behind their collapse. So this is turnaround fair play. So they in the 2016 election, they're intervening in this one.
Invited to intervene by the president and his crew.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
So I saw maps of the divided United States. There's like 5 or 6 different variations of theme. So their intention is to have a civil war and to break us down. There's California, and that part will include Hawaii. There's where you are, that's part. But there's 5, and they have them already named. So that's the plan. Say, oh, the United States is no more. It's just a bunch of little countries. And that takes down the biggest power on the planet.
I don't believe that.
It's just a timeline. I'm not saying that was one of the scenarios.
I've heard that, and I've seen the map, but as everything has been, I think it's a testament to our country. I mean, we have a president that's not working, that literally watches TV and tweets all day. So if he's not working, I guarantee you the people, they're doing the bare minimum too. It's like Obama said. They're not even pretending that they're in charge. Do you know what I mean? And so, but our government is still functioning. There are things still happening. So I testament to the infrastructure and the process. Granted, it's not the best, but it has not imploded. And I just don't buy are so weak that will break down into different countries. Like, I do fear that the divisiveness will lead to a civil war, because it almost feels, you know what I mean? Like, when you look at the way were and the animosities before the Civil War, you're seeing this echoes that. Right? And so if we don't do something about it, could it end up in that place? Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's very much, yes, it is like the Civil War. In essence, the old white guys from the South have taken over the government, Mitch McConnell, the Republican, and so it really is the Civil War. After Grant withdrew troops, that was ever since then, the Southerners have been trying to impose their slavery, be it debt slavery, but basically slavery system on the United States. And, you know, there's another hope, which is the Joint Chiefs might get some testicles. Yeah, when Roosevelt was really old, you know, getting up there and a little bit senile, he talked to Joe Stalin about the United Nations, and he actually made a deal where, listen, I'll be a king of the world with this new United Nations, Joe, and you'll be prime minister for the world. And the Joint Chiefs said, the old man's blown it. We can't let him come back with that. We didn't give all these guys lives so that we could give it all to the commies. And so they were planning on overthrowing the president, but he died and saved them the trouble.
Well, you know, I keep hoping, you know, either the Big Macs or the coronavirus will take Trump out. but I needed to take Pence out too, because he's even scarier than Trump.
You have to have the cronies as well as the trumpets as well as the Trump, right? It's the same thing. That's work, yeah. But this makes me, you know, I look at the founding fathers and they couldn't quite anticipate everything that's going to happen. I think the initial system is deeply flawed, where we have a president, which is really just a king. I don't think they could think outside of the box, so they gave it a nice little fancy label and they said it can be elected. But it's still a monarchy, and they, you know, you've seen the charts where all the presidents are related except for 1 or 2, and it's all they're all descended from royalty, and you can trace them back to Charlemagne, et cetera, et cetera. So, why in the world did they give one person that much power? See, we shouldn't have this problem ever, because if we had it distributed fairly, the checks and everything, but the checks are not in place. We have this president, and he does have that power. He allowed this pandemic to happen, and because your intentions are made manifest by the results. So the results are we have 90,000 people dead, and now he's putting chlor.
Oh, and he's proud of those numbers, by the way. That's what he said today.
Yeah, I'm proud of my numbers. Look how many people I killed. I took them out, and they were all useless bottom feeders. They were old anyway, and they had pre-existing conditions. So let's just add, top it off and push them over the edge. Oh, my God. Anyway, we're coming up on the break. I don't really know when the break is. Let's just keep talking. Okay, because we're kind of
We'll hear it.
If you look at
we'll hear it now with the new system at the station. We'll hear it. We'll have 30 seconds. As soon as you start hearing the music, you'll have 30 seconds before the music gets so loud to drown you out.
Okay. Sasha wants to say something. Go ahead.
Well, if you look at the larger picture, you might see that what we have is, no matter what the governing system, it has the assumption of hierarchy. This is what we got from the Anunnaki who created our society and pitted us against each other. But the idea that some people are better than other people, that some people's song is and light should shine and others is irrelevant. It's that idea. And so I think it's a matter of what we call dominator consciousness that has crept into all of our institutions. What we have as an option is partnership. The kind of thing that we had in the lands of Lilith or Nimrod, where the model was really a sharing, and there isn't war. There's it's possible to create synergy rather than slavery.
Well, don't you think the way the Native Americans lived before the whites came to this country was probably the closest way to where we should be living, right? They were in harmony with the earth.
There were so many different American Indians that there's the entire range of wonderful ones, like the Zuni, where there's too many people for the plateau where they were, and so they have a tug of war, and the winners get to stay on the mesa, but they help the losers start a new mesa,
right?
And it's so that all the some people that are terribly at warfare continually, like the Aztecs, with terrible bloody murderous rituals. The whole range, they were not a unified anything. There were many variations. So some were and some weren't in harmony. That's what it looks like to me as an anthropologist, anyway.
Well, here in the area where I live, it's Six Nation land, and I grew up on I grew up on Tuscarora land. That was like my backyard, my playground, and so the Native American culture very much influenced this area. They've been treated very poorly, but they influenced our Constitution. I don't know if Janet is aware of that, but the Founding Fathers met with the Tuscaroran leaders, and, they discussed and gave them input about how to structure the government and the Constitution. And so they adopted some of the ways of the Tuscarora into the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence, I believe.
Yankee went to the Americas, right?
Yeah. And also,
and he was known as the peace. The natives recognized him as the peacemaker, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the
among the Hosowani, the Iroquois.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the idea is behind the Constitution, and I hadn't heard this before, but it keeps pointing to like Yankee, like somebody who was really conscious and aware of these systems here, and yet, and I agree, and it's very good, probably the best we've had, and yet it's flawed because now we see with this new situation that everything can be obfuscated and taken over and twisted.
Right.
And it's like we couldn't quite see far enough. We didn't have a time machine. And what the Anunnaki had was a council of 12. So I recommend we replace the executive branch with a council of 12, which would be half men, half women. In fact, the Anunnaki, most of their major governing systems or whatever were half men, half women. So you have to the balance between the masculine and feminine.
Right. There it goes.
And that's my recommendation. And that would be all the CEOs, all the companies, you know, every because it's out of balance. You look at the Senate, and it's all white men, and that's ridiculous. There we go. Okay. I was waiting for something else. Welcome back to Stargate the Cosmos. I'm your host, Janet Kira Lessin, and I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin, and our producer is Thomas Becker. And you're listening to Revolution Radio Studio B, and our guest is Debra DeFranco. And before we get back to our show, I'd like to remind everybody to please go over to revolution.radio and go up to the top left. There's a tab. You can make your one-time donation there, or you can go join Patreon, and you will have a recurring payment of whatever I don't know how it works. I guess you can set it up for what you want.
$5
$5.
Yeah, it's $5.
Okay, so right now it's set $5. Okay, there we go. Now, we didn't even get through your whole bio yet. We're getting there. Yeah. You're an amazing person. So, I don't think we finished our rant. We were having fun. So how would we, if we were the king of the world or the queen, what would we do to rearrange this world and make it work for everybody?
You know what? I like that. I like that whole Council of 12 idea. Instead of it being
I thought it was great.
Yeah, it's a group of people that have to work together, right?
They have to come to consensus.
Yes.
They have no vote. You say, I think I'm going to vote no. And so everybody has to tell their logic. You know, what's the pros and cons, and then they have to evaluate. You have to use their minds. Imagine that. They use their minds and they think of everybody it's going to affect down the line. How does that policy, like one thing they're doing is this, they're proposing that they stop all the rents and they stop all the mortgages. Now, we're mom and pop landlords. And it's like, wait, you're going to stop all the... How do I keep the lights on when the utilities are included in my rentals? And how do I keep the trash going? Because that's included.
Right.
And yada, yada.
Right.
So I said, wait, you guys think of me. So a conscious civilization, whoever's governing it, really gets input from everybody that it's going to affect and take consideration. Just like in a family, a functioning family. You know, or in a partnership. You know, when I do things, I don't do something that would negatively affect my husband. It's like he is me, right? So we have to really empathize and feel everybody. We are each other. We are the walrus, right? We are one. Okay, so I put that out there. You want to say something next, or Sasha? We're going to do a round table on this.
Let Sasha go.
Okay, Sasha.
Okay, yeah, it's what Angie Arian, one of my teachers, said. You know, whatever you have a meeting where you can you basically you show up, you pay attention to what has heart and meaning, you speak your truth without blame or judgment, and you're open to but not attached to consequences. If everybody does that, what you need to do is you need to go past any defensive parts of you that come out to talk about the vulnerability that's being touched up and what's making you feel defensive. When you feel defensive, then when we're talking about vulnerability, we're talking about our needs, and we can all synergize and coordinate our needs rather than have them opposed where somebody prevails and somebody fails. We win when we all win together.
Well, I don't think we have a society based on need, right? We have a society based on want.
Right. It's not working.
Yeah, it's not working. Right?
Right.
Because it corrupts.
It's
greed-based.
Yes.
Exactly. So how do we change that, right? Communism doesn't work. Marxism doesn't work. So one of the things that I love about Native American culture, again, before the white man came here, was you contributed to the collective based on whatever you were good at, right? And you were one cog in the wheel. The whole village operated based on everybody contributing whatever they were best at, right? You and I talked about this, about having a skills-based education versus this cookie cutter teach to the test education that has evolved out of everybody's different programs over the last decade, right? These kids aren't learning anything. And most of what they're learning, and they're bored. Most of what they're learning in school, they don't use once they leave school. Can I tell you something? Other than geometry, I never used any other math in my career. All that literature, all that traditional literature they made me read, I don't know why, because I never used any of it, ever. So one thing they did teach me, though, which they don't teach in school anymore, is they taught me how to type. Used to take typing class, right? We had IBM Selectric machines, and we had to get up to 55 words a minute. And, now I type 100 words a minute. So I've always kept my skills up to date by being able to learn how to type. And they don't even teach kids how to type in school anymore. They just assume you already know how to do that before you get there.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
I love typing.
When I got out of high school, there used to be trade schools. And these were real trade schools, not the rip-off mills you have today, right? I went to school that taught me how to be an administrative assistant. It taught me how to use word processing equipment. It taught me how to write a formal letter. It was a real trade school that taught me a skill, and I turned around and used that skill. I never liked school. I was always good at it. I just didn't like it, and I couldn't see myself going to college. I just didn't have the heart to put another 4 years in. And, fashion design school I did quickly, and in fashion design, nobody cares what your degree is. They just care you're good at what you do.
Right.
So
I went to computers. I went to a trade school in computers.
And so I think the trade should be in high school. I think they should be teaching these kids things when they're young. I think we need to put art back into the schools. I think the fact that art isn't in the schools anymore is a very scary thing. I think you take away a kid's creativity, I think that's dangerous.
Yeah, we had music class as well. Art,
music,
and then there was band. It was very diverse. You had gym, and I don't know what they're doing now. I haven't paid attention. I don't know kids or grandkids, but
it's math and English. That's all they do. They've taken just about everything else out of the schools. Libraries open part-time. You barely have a counselor. School has become a joke. I'm surprised these kids can read when they get out. My daughter's homeschooling all of her kids.
Interesting. So what about this? Let's go back to the Native Americans. It sounded like they were doing Ubuntu or contributionism, like they're doing in South Africa, and they were smaller communities, and they had some large nations, but within that they had tribes, right? It was kind of localized tribes, and so that they had to cooperate in order to survive because we have harsh conditions.
Yes, because the Six Nations at one time was at war with each other, right? And they warred with each other, for hundreds of years, almost to the point where they were decimating their tribes. And so they came together and they decided to work together collectively and live collectively. And that's what turned the tide on their culture and allowed them to thrive. But up until then, it was very violent and very warring. But that's the history of the Six Nations.
That's very similar to the history of the Iroquois, where Hiawatha and the war was just managing among them until the women took charge, and the peacemaker, who was probably a Sumerian Enki, brought them back together, and they created a system of governance where the council of elder women handed down the decisions and were the executives. The Cherokee had a high civilization that was certainly at the level of Western Europe's at the same time that that they were sold down the river. But I must say, to take the whole picture into consideration, the Haida and the Kwakiutl and others who had a caste system with slavery and intense warfare had a different flavor. And all over, if you really look at Indian history, you'll see there are many forms of organization. But what anthropologists, and I'm a professional anthropologist, can tell you is there's a number of societies that have acephalous organization. You don't have to have a head. You can have units, smaller units that contribute to larger units, like what they have in Cuba. Actually, they have a pretty damn good system in Cuba, except for being a dictatorship and stuff like that. I mean, everybody's got medical. There's a doctor that lives on every block, and upstairs is where he lives, and downstairs is where he sees the people on his block, and he's responsible for them. And they went from an illiterate country to a totally literate country using the principle of each one. We had just reached back out, and Obama and Castro were about to meet and to open up again to our friends in Cuba, and now that's all junk because of Trump.
We have a Cuban living on our property, so we get all the stories of how he grew up and how he liked it. So, but he's a very nice guy. He's intelligent too. But okay, so how do we resolve these things? Well, our education system drunk. What I like they're entertaining right now is a stimulus package, which includes $2,000 a month, and I've been studying it. The feds are saying if we don't, everybody. Well, it's like under a certain.
Everybody under 100 who makes under $130,000 a year.
Right. They have some parameter, and they're not going to give it to Bill Gates.
Yeah, it's up to $75,000, and it gets prorated up until like $130,000 a year.
Right.
And the Republicans say it's dead on the
They have to do something which puts money in our pockets, because there's no money left to buy anything. In order to have an economy, you have to have the top and buy things. Yeah.
Trump is sitting there saying he said that today, he doesn't support the extension of the unemployment benefits. But man, if you have 40% of the population that's unemployed at the time of the election, and you did not extend those benefits, you're going to have an angry electorate. I just can't believe you.
I don't think he wants to get reelected on some level.
They're not going to be able to vote.
Yeah.
The only thing he wants to do is not go to jail. That's the only reason. It's the only reason why he wants to be reelected, because he knows it will keep his ass out of jail for the next 4 years. But I guarantee you, if he's not elected, him and his family are on the next plane to Moscow. I guarantee you. Because
that should put on Elon to go to Mars.
I think you're right. I think 100%.
They're going to Moscow now. That's interesting. Okay.
I think they'll be on the next plane to Moscow. I absolutely do. Because they're going to jail.
Well, didn't they do that at 911? They got all the allies, the Arab allies out. They were bombing, and all the planes were leaving. Yeah,
the Bin Ladens. They sent the whole Bin Ladens out. They were friends of Bush.
At 9/11, they shut the airways down, and the only planes that were in the air that were leaving had Saudis and the Bin Laden family on it. That's what made. So, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but that smells really bad.
Oh, the evidence is absolutely overwhelming that the Twin Towers were brought down as part of a stand down. The United States was in it. We already had the Patriot Act ready to go, and people didn't have time to even read it. It was all ready to take away what civil liberties we had left and to kill Arabs and to run the oil out of Iraq.
You know what, Dr. Lessin? For a long time, I didn't believe that, but after reading the 9/11 report, I'm right there with you.
Okay, so let's look at, I don't think anybody's deconstructing it like this, but it's not logical what he's doing. So he's taking hydrochloroquine so that all his followers they'll start taking it. We want people dead whether they're blue or red, right? And so that is all. I think you put in the piece that was missing in. As I deconstruct this, because I'm a systems analyst, I'm going, this isn't logical. The only thing I came up with that he was a reptilian or some kind of Draco or Archon, and I was reaching to that level. He just wants to kill off humanity because they've sold the planet to another resource, and they got to get rid of the squatters, the humans, right? It was on that level, but I'm coming to the human level, and he doesn't want to go to jail. He doesn't care. He doesn't care who he takes with him because he's an absolute total narcissist, sociopath. He throws everybody under the bus. He can't think in terms.
Same thing.
So we need to test. We back up a few steps. Before you become a candidate for any major office, you have to pass a psychological exam and emotional intelligence, and no sociopaths and psychopaths.
Absolutely.
But the rule now is they have to film you doing something illegal they can hold against you so you're in line.
But we can protect humanity by putting these additional steps. And you wouldn't give a person that wasn't qualified a job, right? I mean, you have to pass more tests to become a burger flipper in McDonald's than our president.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a minimum standard of qualification for the presidency of the United States. And Trump needs to be the perfect example of why.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they romanticize, little farmer going and becoming president. But, we have to have someone that's qualified, that has the ability to really think, analyze, empathize, and this guy does not have it.
No.
I would have fired him day one. I don't know how he made it.
No, he never worked for anybody else because he'd have got fired. He's lazy.
No, he was a front man. He was a front man for the mob, and he brought things in through Florida. And whenever he was going to go down, they bailed him out because he was their front man for money laundering. Everybody knows that.
I have another question for the panel.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Just make a comment on the front man. Yeah.
No, go ahead. I was going to say now he's just front man for the Russians. So,
I think that's it because they cut a deal, and it's same thing like what happened with Roosevelt. I'll be king of the world, and you'll be prime minister.
Yep,
that's what you're doing.
I believe.
Got what I was saying. Okay. This thing that he does, it's kind of like stochastic terrorism, which is somehow he's Jim Jonesing the world. He inspires his acolytes, and they act out for him in heinous ways. Mm-hmm. And it's not just Trump. It's like there are people that follow Trump like lemmings, running over the cliff, whatever he says. And there are people that are going to go out and consume hydrochloroquine, whatever you pronounce it, and they will die. There are people, I can guarantee that. That's why.
Just like there's a few that swallowed bleach.
Yeah. There's going to be some people. So that's another point is that, what's murder, right? You're inspiring people to take toxins, and people go to trial for that. There was a case in Florida where the girl got tried because a boyfriend called her and said, I'm going to commit suicide instead of talking down. She said, "Go ahead, do it."
Yeah, she
You
was
know?
in prison.
So that's Trump. Go ahead, kill yourself. We'll watch. It'll be good for you. So, but why does that work? Let's look at that. Sasha's a psychotherapist. Why does that work? How does it? He says these things, and they're just like, it's like he turns on some kind of hypnosis thing, and they're all mind control.
I don't think it's that. I don't think it's that.
What is it?
You still have institutional racism in this country.
Yes.
Okay? And he's playing to that. And it's not that it's turned on. It was society was at a point where it made you hide that because it wasn't cool, right? You know, we're all equal, you know. We were going down a good path. But these people still really felt that inside. They just didn't voice it. Now watching that president, now they think it's okay to voice it and say it out loud. They've always thought it. And so this racism that was hidden, this institutional racism that's hidden, it's now being brought to the surface. What you're watching with Trump and everybody that supports him is the last bastions of white power.
It's also what they really think about women. Mrs. America or Mrs. America. And that's about the early years with Gloria Steinem and what's her name, Betty
Friedan.
Yeah. So when they were going to do the ERA, there were a lot of housewives that said, "Oh, I like being a housewife." So they liked being, told what to do. And so that's why some of these women, they go, "Well, yeah, it's, they just buy it, right?" So it's sexism and racism.
Can I tell you something? My mom was one of those women. My mom was told what to do, was a typical housewife of the 50s, did what was expected of her, white picket fence, house with 4 kids, la, 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 la. And she was so freaking miserable. And when I was in the 3rd grade, I came home one day and I walked into the house and there was this lady standing in the middle of the living room, and instead of that bouffant hairdo, she had an afro, and she had giant hoop earrings, and she had on a mini skirt and patent leather boots. And I had to do a double take because that was my mama. And I walked back outside and told my friend she'd come home with me, and I said, "Something's wrong." I said, "I have to go inside." I'm like, "I can't play." I'm like, "I'll call you later." And from that day on, our lives changed. My mama wasn't taking the world's bullshit anymore. And she was like, F that. I'm living the life I want, and I don't care what the world has to say about it. And our life was forever different after that. And my mama stopped playing by the rules.
Wow. Well, yeah, my mother did that too. What year was your mother born?
My mama was born in 1942.
Okay. My mother was born in 1922, so she was the previous generation. But by the time she ended her life, well, she went into dementia, so she couldn't do much of anything. But before she got dementia, she was the boss of the family, Yeah. She took over. She everything. She knew how to do it and what to do. But when she in the 40s and 50s, she was leave it to beaver, She was that kind of mom. Wore one of those big poofy dresses all through the 60s.
Yeah,
right?
my mama.
So she didn't get it. And she was a Republican. And my family was Republican. The first time I voted when I was 18, I voted Republican, right? So I could look back at this. But I was pleased with my dad, right? But I know she was a closet Kennedy fan because she had a big scrap. I think that she told my dad she voted for Nixon, but she voted for Kennedy. Because she just loved peasants. So she rebelled. See, they always rebel. They might act like they're doing everything, but that was her little, screw you.
Yeah.
What do you think? So, Josh, your mom was you were born 19. Chime in. What was your mother like?
My mother was she loved being a rich man's wife, and she had a lot of fun, and she took us all kinds of places. All the musicals in Los Angeles, and then later on I just became an usher when I was on my own, and it just all summer long, and listen, it not only was she rich, she was also smart. She had all kinds of money, and took all classes and got degrees. And
so she went back to college.
Okay.
So what year did she go back to college?
She started going back to college, I think about 56 or 54.
Right, so this is a woman.
Actually, it was really fun because she went to college, and my father was too busy, and I taught her, quizzed her on all those things. So before I ever got to college, I already knew a whole bunch of college courses. I had teaching them to my mother.
Wow, so, in the 50s.
Yeah.
It's easy when you're rich.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were poor. My daddy was a postal worker. That's what's so sad. My dad was a postal worker, and my brother followed in his footsteps, and so that basically, supported our families for. He was 39 years, and then my brother another 25 years, right? So, and now they're trying to destroy it. I can't even comprehend that. It's like, what? But they don't. Trump doesn't want his people to vote. If we vote by mail, he said it. He said, "Well, I'm not going to win if they get to vote by mail."
No, if they make voting easy and everybody gets to vote, Republicans won't win, and they know it. That's why they're doing everything they're doing. I told you, this is the last bastions of white power trying to hold on to power. Diversification is happening in America, and we're going to turn into a light brown skinned race of people, whether they like it or not. They just don't like it, and they're trying to fight it. But, I got news for you. It's coming.
Do you have brown grandchildren? I have, I never had children, but my nieces and nephews, the great nieces and great nephews, some of them are brown. What about
They're
your
all
family?
brown. They're all my grandchildren are all light brown. My grandchildren are a mix of everything. They're black, white, Native American. The only thing they're not is Asian. They're Mexican.
Yeah.
So they're like little light brown little kids. And like my daughter is black, white, and Native American. And her husband is Mexican, Mayan descendant. And her kids are a mix of everything. Like one looks like she's a mix of black and Hispanic. Another one looks like she's completely Hispanic. Like the girls, and they're everything but Asian. Like they're a typical melting pot. And I think their entire generation is going to look just like them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to get over it, embrace it. I think they're great. The kids are so cute. When I came to Hawaii, I finally had diversity. I had a part of me just hungered for it all my childhood, which was just black and white and totally split, right? And so when I went to Penn State University to live and work, to work there and study, that's when I started meeting other cultures. And I just was I had one of my best friend was from India. And, so finally there was some diversity. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to move to Hawaii, because Hawaii is just right here in Maui. We have it all. We have every race, color, creed, orientation, religion, belief system. And it's just amazing amazing. And when you have that, it's so diversified, then they vote blue, right? They go for diversity. They're not going to vote against themselves. So we're going to have a whole different future here.
Well, anywhere where you see a diverse population, it's usually blue. It leans Democratic. Anytime you've got a white population, it leans red. Like I said, the last bastions of white power trying to stay in power.
Even after these guys are gone, they've left a judiciary that's going to haunt us with anti-woman moves and discriminatory moves and protecting of
you know
companies
what?
that.
I'm going to tell people this, and I know they don't believe me, but I've worked in the legal field a long time. Don't ever underestimate judges, and I don't care what their political affiliation is, right? Most people that get elevated to the bench take that very seriously. And the majority of them try to do a good job. You get, your random bad apple, as you do with anything, but the majority of them try to do a good job. You can think you're putting a conservative on the Supreme Court. Don't bet your money on it, let me tell you, because history will prove otherwise, right? There's been conservatives that often voted liberal, in the liberal direction. There's been liberals that have often voted conservative. You can never predict how a judge is going to rule. And I've often found, regardless of their political affiliations and how hardcore they were in their beliefs, a lot of judges try to be fair, right? And try to interpret the intent of the law, what it was meant for. So don't always assume, even though I know they're trying to load the courts with conservatives, that's the one thing that doesn't scare me. Because what I've watched in the judiciary is judges try to follow the intent and the spirit of the law. And I don't care what party they come from.
Okay, it's interesting that if the Democrats were to ever take again the presidency in both houses, they could increase by an act of Congress signed by the president as a law the number of justices on the Supreme Court, so that there's the same, so you can change the balance.
And I think another way to remedy this is limit terms, like make no more 8 years of a president, no more lifetime appointments of a judge. Just start to limit terms. They can still work as a judge, but they go down to a lower court. They can still be a governor or a senator, but they get out of being president for a while. I mean, because that's how we've got so much corruption, is we have people who get basically appointed for life, or they get voted in for life, and they get really, what do you want to call it, convoluted and perverse in their attitudes. They turn into gods, and it's just rotate them out. That's what we need. Right now we're seeing it in action. Rotate it out. Another person. Next.
The other thing is, I think elections need to be paid for, and they shouldn't have to raise money, because I think that opens the door for corruption, right?
Corruption.
And the lobbyists and the special interests, you have to get rid of them, because right now our government just caters to them. They don't cater to the people. They cater to special interests and whoever can pay those, high-powered lobbyists in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Robert Reich did this whole series in the system, a study of Diamond and J.P. Morgan, and how that basically the system is designed to ultimately rip everybody off. That's the way it goes. And money that you give the system, they just buy their own stocks back. They don't hire more people, or they've changed everything. What Reich calls it, from stakeholders, and that's in a company, that's the community, that's the workers, that's the consumers, to stockholders. And stockholders want payback each quarter, big profits. Hell with everybody. That's what happens. And so the kind of things that are being passed by this Congress that's going to get past the president and Mitch McConnell are the kind of things that benefit the people that have the most, way more, and it puts all kinds of blocks on the ordinary people that need it to live from month to month.
Absolutely. I think private equity. I think private equity needs to be outlawed.
Yeah.
How do you see that happening?
I don't see it happening. I just think it needs to be done. I think they're destroying. I think they're destroying business. They use the bankruptcy courts. They use all the loopholes in the tax systems. I mean, they run these companies into the ground. They bleed them, and people are always laid off in the end. And there's nothing left, and they've stripped it dry. And I think private equity and their business practices need to be outlawed.
Vulture capitalism.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think it needs to be outlawed. Have you guys ever seen the B Corporation philosophy?
No.
Okay, so the B Corps were started by two men I used to work for. God, I can't think of their names. Bart and Seth. And they used to run And One with four other men. So what a B Corp is, it's another type of corporation, but it's where you put community first, right? So it's your people, your place in the community, and then your profits. Your profits are not first. Your profits go in line with servicing both the community and your people, right? And so it's having a more philanthropic approach to corporate America and business versus always servicing short-term bottom line, numbers.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I love it.
What do you think of basic minimum needs economy? We're looking at BMI, but a basic minimum needs economy would be the needs of all the citizens of whatever it is, the country or the planet would get met first.
Well, I
think
think
that may entail a cap on personal wealth, but eventually, as needs improve for everybody,
I think that's important, but don't you think there's already an example of that that's successful? Doesn't Norway do that?
I'm not sure exactly what Norway does. What does Norway do? Honey?
Everybody's covered. Everybody's covered. Nobody's
so it's medical.
Yeah.
No bottom. Nobody living on the. Everybody has a right for home food and basic needs. Yeah.
And there's minimum time off. You get minimum vacation. It's everybody. And they do it successfully. They're a very wealthy nation. Other nations like the UK, they tax their people to death. Their health system is not very good. Their housing is poor. There's a big disparity between the rich and the poor in that country. And so there's got to be the balance. How do you service the needs of the people without taxing people to death, right? Because when you tax people to death, it disincentivizes them to make money. Because the more money they make, you just take it away.
So that's why we go back to the indigenous peoples and how did they meet the needs of their people? And so, Sasha, you're an anthropologist.
One of the most common ways is a redistributive system like we had in Hawaii, where people do their work from the top of the mountain to out on the reef, and they bring their stuff together, and the chief puts all this stuff together and he puts it in piles to different families and households on the basis of how many people are there. It's a redistributive system. Yeah. And if the chief is do his job, since they're ambilateral, they go live with their relatives, and the chief is a chief of nothing. So that's a way of voting with your feet. That's it. But there's many, many, many systems. You don't have to have an exploitive system. Once people see what's happening, the cooperative movement which is what B comes down to, the B Corps,
Yes.
is really different than privatizing the functions of government to companies that aren't answerable because they are sheltered by an artificial corporationship, which allows them to be a person that goes through the generations. And so you should really not allow corporations like that to exist, because that subverts the possibility of individuals having the same status as each other when you have these sheltered, privatized functions. And that's what they want to do with the post office, for example. So you won't be able to get a mail and vote by mail. So that's another Trump way he's trying to trump us.
Can I tell you what scares me more than anything else? And it's a little bit off topic, but it has to do with them taking everything away. I worry the day they stop printing books and all the information goes online, because then they control all the information.
Yes.
Very Orwellian, isn't that?
Oh, it's awful.
Yes.
It's what happens on YouTube. Whenever there's a mention of anything, for example, in my field, Anunnaki, there's an automatic hot link to Wikipedia, which says this is a myth. It starts out with the idea this is a myth, when I can tell you it's actual history, the way the Sumerians recorded it. And so they give this, and so Google owns information, but they don't just own the information, they hot link it to people that sing their praises and have their line, and it discounts all of the spiritual traditions.
Absolutely. 100 years from now, they're not going to know we ever existed. It's kind of, what is this about? How a system that comes in and can just totally wipe it out with a press of the button and an algorithm and change things. So I've seen that. I've seen things that I've witnessed and lived through, and in 10 years, it's like it's so convoluted. It's just So what can we do about that? We're just here. I guess the best revenge is to enjoy the moment and love each other, because that's the only thing that really lasts. Everything else is just dust in the wind, I guess.
And basically non-participation in the institutions that are killing you.
Well, it's how do you get outside of the system and survive, right? Because those institutions aren't... Well, absolutely. Like, I'm making those steps. I've been taking those steps for about 5 years. So I feel like I have a head start compared to most people. But I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but do you know all the seed companies in this country had to shut down and had to shut down their websites, and they had to stop taking orders because they got overwhelmed? March 23rd, I think, the day after they started the lockdown orders, one seed company, one of the better ones, said he usually got 1,000 orders a day that they processed and, usually shipped out. He said when they came in the next day on the 24th, there were 10,000 orders. And that happened every day for the next few days. And every seed company in the country said the same thing happened to them. So people have woken up to the fact that they have to change. They can't be dependent on this system. Our chances of having food shortages over the rest of the year are very high. So what are people going to do? We have to start thinking outside the box and start doing things differently. And we have to do it with little things in our life. And then if we do it with the little things, those will gradually morph into the big things.
The other thing is, if they want to invalidate our gardens, they'll just put more gallons or something. I mean, it's a total control system.
I don't think they'll do that. I don't think they'll do that. I don't think they'll ever stop people from growing food on their land.
They can't get seeds. They're not going to grow food.
You can get seeds from existing plants.
Well, now you can get seeds. Now, what they feel like is the seed stock got tapped out, and it's going to take a couple years to recover because of how many people that ordered the seed. And the seed companies have opened back up, but they're out of a lot of stuff. And you know, I have started sending out whole garden seed packets to people who want to grow things and can't get seeds, because I've been trying to start a seed business for the last 2 years for Fairy Farms, but the weather has prevented it. But I've been building seed stock, and some of it's starting to age, and I don't want it to go dead. So instead of it going dead, I'm giving it away. So anybody that wants, yeah. And all of these plants have been bred in containers, so they can be grown anywhere. They can be grown on regular land, or they could be grown in containers. It doesn't matter. So, yeah, and these are all seeds that I've bred. The seeds that I've bred and that I've grown and that were going to be used. And so I've given probably a dozen gardens away this year. And otherwise, those people wouldn't have been able to buy them, you know, because all the seed companies were out. So I'm doing it for anybody that needs seeds.
So what are you doing how do you save your seeds? What are you supposed to do? How do you keep them?
Okay, so I keep them in paper envelopes and in paper foil envelopes. You're never supposed to keep seeds in plastic because it cuts off the oxygen, and seeds need to breathe. Because inside every seed is a living baby, right? And so that stays alive for a long time under the right conditions. And so keeping them in paper is very important because the paper allows them to breathe. And so just letting your seeds, taking your best plants, letting them go to seed, which usually lets them, they grow past, you know, when you would normally harvest them to eat, and, you know, separating the seeds from the pulp and letting them dry out, and then storing them in envelopes and keeping them cool and dry. And seeds will usually last, like they say, lettuce seeds go bad after every season. But I found if you store them properly, lettuce seeds can last 3 or 4 years. So I think seeds can last a lot longer than they say, provided you handle them properly and store them properly.
Do you have, what do you use, envelopes? Where do you get your packages?
I use paper. I use specially made seed envelopes because they have lips on the side that keep the tiny, minute seeds from falling out. And I found a great brand on Amazon this year that wasn't there last year. It's called Soligt, Solight. Oh, I love them. I've ordered probably about 1,000 envelopes so far, and I'm about to order some more.
SOGL.
SOLIGHT. HT. They're made specifically for saving seeds. And they're self-sticking. So they're self-sticking. They have an adhesive on it that reseals. And they have the lips on the side that keep the seeds from coming out of the sides of the flap.
Good. I'll get some of those. Yeah, we just started our garden up again. Sasha's, do you have any questions for our expert here?
I just, you know, stuff that you don't even think of. You don't have to get them if you get a papaya that you like. And then and as it comes up really quick, and what you do is you have to distinguish the male flower from the female flower, so that the female is the one that's going to give you papayas. And trees are a really good thing because it's so hard when you grow carrots and then you pull them out and then you don't have a carrot there anymore. But you got a tree, it keeps giving to you. So I'd say if you can go for a fast-growing tree like a banana or papaya, that's really cool. And citrus or avocado just keeps it. So start with trees. You can do so much. If you take a banana and you cook it while it's green, it's starchy. If you wait till it turns to fruit, it isn't. It's fruit. So that's what I'd say. Start with trees if you can.
Do you guys grow the cocoa plants at all for chocolate?
I don't anymore. It's just way more work than I want to do.
Really? I want to buy. I want to buy some pods and like try it, but I don't live in the right climate to grow them.
Well, could you pull them into a greenhouse?
Sure, you could.
To keep in pots?
I could, but right now my greenhouse is an open air greenhouse, so I can only use it during the season when the weather is good.
Now I'm seeing online on Amazon they have lots of seeds. So I wonder if
Okay, can I tell you something? I don't buy seeds on Amazon because I've been ripped off too many times by the seed suppliers on Amazon.
Uh-huh.
I have this list of about 36 seed companies that I follow.
All right, you'll have to give us your list. But I'm just wondering if people that are listening, they're all going to want to buy seeds somewhere.
Okay, so I'll tell you my all-time favorite site. It's called rareseeds.com, and it's by a company called Baker Creek.
Okay, Baker Creek.
Yep.
Alrighty. So we only have 4 or 5 more minutes. What would you like to talk about in our final minutes?
Gosh, what would I like to talk about in our final minutes? So, okay, this is totally off topic. I have a question for Sasha, and it's about the Anunnaki. So, I haven't finished reading everything on the EnkiSpeaksWebsite.com because there is so much information on that website. It's every time I get a few minutes, I go in there and I'll start reading and I'll get lost for hours. But it's the information is endless. It's almost like you can't read it all. There's so much information out there. And there's so many, links to other stuff. Is it possible that the seeding done by the Anunnaki was not the only seeding done by an off-planet species?
Oh, you're completely correct. Yes,
okay.
That's totally correct. There's way others.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So if you want to know how it actually happened, putting it together is way before the Anunnaki came. They only came 450,000 years ago.
Right.
The Dracos, who basically had settled Venus and moved the Luna into place and had settled the first of the continents that arose, Lemuria, and their beef, which they brought with them, were the dinosaurs, and they spread all over the earth. Meanwhile, the Federation got together and they took the Maldecans, who had taken shelter in Mars, and landed them in the Gobi Desert, and they got the Atlans and landed them in Atlantis, and they drove the Dracos off of Venus. It goes on and on. So there was finally the Andromedans called an end to the war and had the Council of Hatona, where it was decided who wanted to contribute to the basic humans. And so there was 12 humanoid groups and one Draco group that made the basic humans that you had running all over the planet, including Homo erectus.
We got to give the last minute to her.
Okay, anyway, it goes on.
Okay, and so the Anunnaki used that, right? And they played off of that to what we are today, correct?
That's right. They basically settled in the area of Turkey and the Middle East. There were other people all over the place. And
they used the being, the Homo erectus being, is what they started with. So they were
their genes plus some of Homo erectus.
Right. Okay.
And they're Bigfoots.
That's what I. So the story that ended up in the Bible is just the Anunnaki story, but there's other species that have had their hands in this, and not all of that has ended up in the Bible. Okay, good. All right, I'm on the right path, Dr. Lessin. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, great. And of course, we're always learning new things, and there's always different perspectives. It looks like that we have a huge galactic universal society, and we're over here quarantined because, we're dangerous on some level, or this is a prison planet. But we keep going out, and we interview experiencers, and the picture is huge. And that would be the other thing that would change everything. If we had disclosure, real disclosure, so the more people come out with their stories, we're interviewing them every week. I've got a lady coming up soon, and she's got an amazing story. It's not anything like what we think it is. Our history is completely different. What's going on is completely different. Okay. Where's our music? It's supposed to be here now. What would you like to say? Back to you. The music's going to come on any second now.
Me, I'm taking a page out of Dr. Lessin's book. Just everybody spread love and light, right? Just be kind.
And I think that's the solution. You don't know if it's right or wrong. Is it fun? Is it living? Yeah. Here's our music.
Start with the idea that there is no other, just reflections.
Ah.